What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kuempel with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. I'm super pumped. I actually have a fellow fashion designer from Massachusetts. Her name is Maureen. We met when I was going through my whole fashion design journey, and she's actually been a lot more successful in her journey. So thank you, Maureen, so much for being a guest today. And I'm so excited to share your story because I just want to support you because you're an amazing individual. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your company, I Love My Nighty.
Okay, well, Deanna, thank you so much for having me on Label Free Podcast. And I'm so happy we've stayed connected over the past few years after our initial meeting where I know we hit it off immediately.
Yes.
And we just like connected right away. And I've always loved watching your business grow and change over time. And so to still be connected to you and for you to, think of me and reach out and, get your support for I Love My Nighty really means a lot. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I know how hard that journey is. So
Yes, you do. So when we met, so my background has been in television and video production for my whole career. And I have no background in business, in fashion, and design, and sewing, nothing, but I know you're in Chicago and I'm here in Boston. And so we both know very well the hardships of long, cold winters.
yes.
And, it just kind of like, we spend, 6 months of the year freezing here, and, you just kind of like want to be warm and cozy all the time. And I always loved nightgowns, and I have like lots of like really pretty, more like summer and satiny and, vintage nightgowns, but come winter, those are tucked away. And, now you're layering yourself in, fluff and frump and everything to stay warm. And, I just like kind of looked in the mirror and was like, ugh, I want that like same nightgown vibe, that elegance of a nightgown, but I'm freezing. So I want this kind of like non-granny, certainly there are winter nightgowns, but they're very, sort of grandmotherly.
Yeah.
And although I do have those too, it's just like, well, I've got a nice figure and I take care of myself and I've got a great husband and everything, I'm like, I'd like to, kind of,
Yeah, for sure.
keep things interesting, even in
Throw it off. Yeah, guys, that's right.
So, I go looking for this like winter nightgown and this like idea that I have in my head, and, and I can't find it. And I just like kind of can't stop thinking about it. So I just decide I want to make it. And I sign up for sewing lessons. I find a pattern of, something close to what I'm thinking. I get organic cotton, jersey, fabric, and I start making this, for myself.
Did you do all that before we met?
Yes.
Oh, you did? Okay. Maybe you told me that and I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So, that was kind of like, that was just how I started doing. That was just for myself, but then it's like, okay, well now this is great, but now I want it, but in this fabric. So now I'm making it in this fabric. And now I'm like, okay, now I want, this style, and I start like thinking of these styles and everything. But I mean, I am terrible at sewing. And when you can't really sew, I mean, I'm terrible. It's just like, I don't have any experience, so I'm not going to put myself down in that way, but like, I didn't know how to sew. And if you try,
and sewing is tedious. I'm not gonna lie. Like it.
No, it is not for me. Yeah. So it was not what I wanted to spend my weekends, doing in my spare time. So I, started looking for, so I didn't want to sew them. It's just like, it's very stretchy material that I'm using. It's very difficult to work with and so frustrating. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'd love to like have these ideas that are in my head come to life, but what am I going to start paying people, hundreds and hundreds of dollars to like custom make my nightgowns? I'm like, that's a little crazy, to get like, samples and patterns and everything. So I spent in 2016, I did kind of like a soul searching, I guess I would say. And really it happened that year. A couple things happened. One was a bunch of people died that were close to me. And it just was like really a lot, you know, kind
Yeah.
of going on. And I ended up going to a tarot card reading,
Look
and
out. Okay.
you know, that a friend of mine kind of urged me to go to. She'd had a really great experience, and she's like, you got to go to this person. And you know, I just like, not that I'm very very interested in that stuff, but I wouldn't have like gone if she
Sure.
hadn't had like tried to convince me to go. So like, sure, I'll go. And it was just like the most amazing things like came out of that reading. And like, you know, that's a longer story, but you know, one of the things was one of the most important things when I walked in, this woman was also an intuitive, and she said,
Okay.
you're worried about something. You're worried about somebody, a child, and you don't need to worry. And I just like got that, you know, she said, I just got that message and I wanted to tell that to you. And I was like,
Sure.
you know, and I did have a child that I was worried about. There was a child in my life that I had been, you know, kind of a caretaker of, and her grandmother had just died, and I had become very close to her grandmother.
Sure.
So she had just died like a few months before, after like 5 other people had died. But that person in particular, when she died, I actually felt very like comforted by it, because she was very old and sickly and didn't have a
Yeah.
very nice life. And she loved Jesus so much, and like her mom, you know, was there. And I just felt like, you know, happy that she was kind of out of pain,
Right. Yes.
united with her mother and meeting Jesus, and, you know, her dreams were coming true. So
Yeah.
you know, I had like this good feeling about her, even despite her passing on. So when this message came to me at that tarot card reading, I was just like really struck by it. And especially it was like, you don't need to worry. And then kind of afterwards, this like reader actually said this woman's name, you know, and I was
Really?
like, how could you, where did you come up with that? You know,
That's
and like,
bizarre.
it was really bizarre. So I was like, there is something to this message that I need to take seriously, you
Yeah.
know? So I really did. I went home and I just took that kind of like not worrying thing to heart, and just said, you know, I'm going to apply it not to this situation, but to everything in my life. And I just
Yes.
realized like how much time I spent worrying about a lot of things.
Sure.
And when I removed that, how that helped me, you know, start to believe in this idea that I could turn, you know, this, you know, idea of making nightgowns into a business.
Yeah.
So, and at the same time, I discovered this online accelerator program, which is called Factory 45. And I just happened to read it, you know, from another designer mentioned it in an article, that they had gone through the program. And that was like a huge thing for me, because I didn't have a clue that outside of fashion school there was any way for me to get help. You know, I
Sure.
just thought like, and I definitely was not going to go to fashion school. You know, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not interested in going to school. I'm, you know, I was in my mid 40s, and it's like, you know, I have a full-time job and a career that I'm very happy with. You know, this is not something I'm trying to like change my whole life. And,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, it wasn't even like a passion that I'd had my whole life. It was just like, no, this is just like this idea, you know, I don't know, you know, and like to have to go around and tell people like, I want to make nightgowns, you know, like people are going to be like, what?
That's very inspiring though, and like almost empowering for you to like
Yes,
stumble upon that, and you know, and just to like start going that direction. And we met through Startup Fashion in New York, right?
yes, exactly.
And it was at the Fabric Show,
Yes, the trade show. Yes, yep.
and that was what, in 2017?
Yes,
So
right. So once 2016, and I kind of then spent like, I had like 6 more months of that sort of self-discovery process of, you know, just changing my mindset, learning, you know, just learning a lot more about like, you know, my connection, our everybody's human connection to that which is beyond our, you know, 5 senses, and that
sure.
which is like here, you know, that we can see and feel and hear, you know, that there is, you know, we have a much deeper connection to things beyond. And I really, you know, spent a lot of time learning about that and researching it, and, you know, kind of the idea of manifestation, and, you know, the kind of power of positive thinking, just all of that stuff, you know, and, you know, learning how to do that properly and believe in it. And it just, you know, it just changed me in so many ways, you know, just to, yeah, help kind of empower me to
Yeah.
follow this, you know, what did feel like kind of a crazy idea. So then, yeah, so I just like basically, you know, January 1st, 2017, New Year's Day, you know, it was like, this is it. I'm going to try this year. This is my kind of New Year's resolution. I'm going to start taking these steps to see, to make this happen. And the first thing I did was sign up for a business planning class. So to me, I did always know from the get-go that this had to be come at from the perspective of running a business and not just like creating clothes. So I started first with the business planning class, and and that helped. I had never really told anybody besides my husband I even wanted to do this, so like that got me kind of talking about it,
Sure. Yeah.
just kind of opening up about it. And then, so then I had discovered that Factory 45 accelerator program, and they only have an opening for like 1 week every year. It's like maybe 10 days or something. It's in May. You get your application in, and within 10 days, you find out, and then you start June 1st. And she was only at that time letting in, like 80 people or something. So it was very limited,
Yeah, sure.
So I was definitely like hedging all my bets on getting in there, like hoping for it. And, and I did get in. So that was like, felt, like a relief in just like, okay, now I'm going to kind of apply these same business principles, but, focused in a fashion,
Sure.
the fashion industry and design. And this program also like expects you to have a environmental, focus in your business.
Yeah. And so I read, so you are made in the USA.
Yes.
And you use sustainable fabrics, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I was actually, before we got on, I was like, so I don't know if you can see, but these are some of her designs here. I'm actually thinking I'm all into colors. So I really love this pink one. So
okay. Yay.
I'll probably be ordering that one.
All right. Yep. I'll put one aside for you.
But I also like this. Well, I don't know. The fleece it's too warm right now. That's
yeah. Right. So I have like kind of stuff for every season, styles for every season.
So you've taken your concept. Okay, so unlike me, that went balls to the. Let me tell you something. It was so much fun though. Like the fashion industry. Like if that's so, I love clothes. Clearly, I love clothes. I love fashion. I love style. I love the whole design process. If I could go back and do things again, I would not have gone as hard. I would have done only a couple pieces at a time.
Right.
And really figured out my target customer.
Right.
And from what I understand, I know somebody else that went through that Factory 45, and they really help you narrow down on who your target customer is. And I think that is very beneficial, and not going so crazy. Like, I mean, I don't have deep pockets. So for someone like me, that I should, like, it just was not smart. So why don't you tell us like how from 2017 till now, 2020, you have definitely evolved and slowly grown your business. I Love My Nighty, and have got some really great pieces. And they're actually, I believe, these will never go out of style. Like, you're going to always need a nightgown.
Right. Right. Yeah. So when it came to, kind of Factory 45, and then this idea of like developing my, concept, I knew that I wanted to be luxuriously soft, and I knew it wanted to be eco-friendly. So it did. So the program was in 2017, then 2018, it was really all about, kind of finalizing designs and, patterns, samples, and, researching the fabric, and because I want this like very soft, I wanted it made in USA if possible. wanted it to be eco-friendly, and it's very limited, like what you can get with that kind of narrow.
Yes.
And I had thought I would do organic cotton. It just was also going to be, that was something that would be grown, potentially could be grown in the US too.
Sure.
But then, like, doing the research, I discovered tencel. And tencel is also, it's a natural botanic fiber. It comes from tree pulp, mainly like eucalyptus trees and beech trees. And this is a fiber that was developed out of a company called Lenzing, based in Austria.
Wow.
And the thing about that fabric and this company is that their whole process is eco-friendly. Like everything about, the way the trees are grown and harvested, and the pulp making process, and
Sure.
like every single fiber has a chemical process involved, but they've, try to reduce the amount of chemicals and, make them as, green, or as environmentally friendly as they can, for the chemical process. And we're using this kind of closed loop process to reuse the chemicals and reuse the water, so it's reduced water. Yeah. So it just is a very reliable resource of, with high integrity and standards for environmental standards. But also this fabric is just beautiful. It's silky, soft, smooth, drapey. It's just perfect for this type of clothing. It feels very feminine. And cotton, as soft as it is, and I still wear the nightgown that I made for myself, which is organic cotton, and it does feel kind of just as soft. But this is like, sometimes cotton can be like not soft when you first get it, and it's kind of wears, and as you wash it, it gets softer over time. This has that, like, Tencel has that softness, like as soon as you're working with it. It also has more like moisture wicking properties. This, like, cotton can kind of be like clammy if you're sweating in it. So this will be more like moisture wicking, kind of less static, and it doesn't shrink. So it had a lot of, great properties. So I ended up going with Tencel, and it's been really great. And so once I kind of figured that out, it's like, all right, well, now, like, kind of finding my sources here in the US, and, I found a couple in, in New York and LA, or in California. There's, more than these two, but I kind of went with these two places. And then, like, finalizing the samples, and, like you, it's like I had a ton of ideas of, what to make.
So who'd you use as your fit model? Did you use yourself?
I didn't, when I first started working, the very first person I worked with as a pattern maker was like, oh, use a size medium, and I'm more of a small, and which I was kind of like, okay, but yeah, it was like, well, would it be nice for me to be able to try it on myself? But I just went with that because I didn't know, and I just said, fine. I did end up having to use a fit model, but when I found my factory in New York, so yeah, once I had the fabric and kind of samples and I was kind of ready to go, I ended up finding a consultant to help me find the factory, because I was starting to reach out to factories, and it was just, I just basically happened to kind of meet this person, and she was like, I can help you find somebody, that's my expertise, and you'll want to know, that they have the right equipment and that they're working, with these stretchy fabrics. And, I'd reached out to one, and they didn't, they couldn't sew with spandex fabric, know.
So I didn't realize that was an issue either until I did the third collection.
Yes. Okay. Right. Yes. Right. When you have no experience. So I was like, great, and I hired her, and she helped me find this factory, which I am still using. And they're based in New York, in the Bronx.
I saw that. I saw your last post. Yeah.
So, good. So once I, got connected with him, I kind of had to start over again. It's like, he still has to make the samples and the patterns, because he's got to kind of go through the process, So I'm kind of like, okay, here are all my samples and patterns. Like, no, well, I'm going to have to do it anyway. So it's like, okay, now make that. So that took a few months. And I never knew how long it was going to take, so I just had 3 styles, because it's like, it was so much to even get those 3 styles, like, to a point that it was ready to go. And because I didn't know when I would launch, each style was like a different season. So I have that hoodie, which is very wintry. Then I have that t-shirt one, which is the one that you like, this long, just a jersey gown. And that was the first one that came in my head that I started making for myself. It was like, I just want like a basic, like your comfy t-shirt, but with elevated elegance, like it's a long sleeve t-shirt with ruching on the side. That's it, like, and it's long, because I just think like these long nightgowns are just like, again, I like that kind of elegance of a nightgown. So it's the long sleeve one, but that's just like a thin jersey material, and then a tank top style. So all of the styles were purposely basic. They were basic so that they were easy to make.
That
it was like would cost less, ideally, if there isn't a lot of stuff going on them. And they're just recognizable to people. It's like, if you've got something like too fancy, it's like, I don't wear that kind of thing. It's already kind of a stretch to get some people to wear nightgowns, because they do have this idea in their heads. So you know, like it's got to kind of look like what they already know and like, and they'll be like, oh yes, I know, I love that style, I want one, you know. So I kept it purposely, you know, simple for that reason. And yeah, so I just did the 3 styles. And by the time he started working, you know, and in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have these for Christmas. You know, this is 2018. And like, no, he didn't even start making them till, you know, like January, you know?
It's such a
Yeah.
long process. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it blew my mind, and you have to really push hard. So,
Yeah.
so I did, I did a Kickstarter, which you know, and you
I
support me.
remember.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. And
Yes.
so the company that I was working with with that first collection really kind of, they quoted me a price, and I said, so this is to manufacture, right? And they said yes. So after I took all my Kickstarter orders, I sent over the orders to them. They're like, well, this is not correct. It's going to be more because of this, and that. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? So I fired them. I had to get the money back that I had sent them to manufacture the pieces. And I had to work very quickly and very hard to find a manufacturer here,
Right.
to find comparable fabric to what I had picked out with them, and all the like the buttons and all that stuff.
Right.
It was I was a ball of stress, and
Yeah.
and then I had to take the patterns that they sent me. They didn't even send me the full patterns because they had them done in China. And
Right.
so then I had to have the manufacturer here duplicate the samples that I had,
Right.
and grade them based off of that.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if I was to go back, I would have used myself as a fit model,
Yes. Right.
because I just would have done that. I think that would have been smarter to do, because I know how things fit, and you know, just whatever.
Right.
But it was definitely a learning lesson. So, and just think about, I don't even know how many pieces I did with my Kickstarter, but I almost sold I sold almost everything, one of each at least,
Right.
from what I
Right.
remember. And so just imagine having to duplicate all those pieces with fabric
Yeah.
and patterns.
Right.
It was insane.
It is, yes. But I don't, you know, but in a way, I don't blame you, Deanna, because I think, and I didn't go to fashion school, but I do think that that's kind of the mentality. Is it's all about the collection. It's
Yeah.
all about creating your collection, and they feed into this idea of like that you create a collection and it's about a season and it's about this, you know, this kind of fabric and these patterns and these colorways and
Yeah.
all of this stuff. And it's like, that's, it's not, you know, I just don't know how, you know, that
It's not real. It's not realistic for
not
someone,
realistic. Yeah,
for just someone starting out. So, you know,
exactly. Exactly. So, I don't blame you for having it done, doing it that way, because I think that's probably the message you got, is
yeah.
that's how you do it. So you just kind of went along with what you were hearing is how it's done. So, yeah, I kind of shielded myself from that.
Yeah,
Even,
you definitely used the better resource. So just
yeah.
moving forward, so what does
Yeah.
2020 look like for you? And I love my nightie.
So yeah, so I mean, when I launched last year, it wasn't until February that I ended up launching, and that was I just did that kind of small production run with those 3 styles, and I actually launched on Valentine's Day, and I launched it to men in the form of a gift certificate. So
Oh,
I
very
asked
cool.
all these men to buy a gift certificate for a personal home shopping experience. So he
Wow.
would then just give, you know, his girlfriend or wife this, you know, gift certificate. And these were, you know, people I knew, and it was
Sure.
limited to, I think I did 35 people, because what that meant was I was going to have to do an actual go to each person's home. And,
Sure.
you know, and the reason why I did it that way was because, you know, like what you were saying, it's like you make this one size, and, you know, I work with this fit model to make this one size, but now
Yeah.
I've got these 4 other sizes, and I've never seen them in my life. I have no idea what they look like. I don't know how they fit people. I don't, you know, I haven't seen anybody wearing any of them except this one person. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to like see how these even fit, you know, and
Yeah.
get feedback from people. So,
That was a smart thing to do, though. And it's like that, it was cute. That's cute.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah, it
I
worked
like
out
that.
great. Yeah. And then I went to all these, I spent like literally 30 days straight. You know, some days I did like 3 appointments in a day. I would take like one night off a week, but I was every night after work every weekend, 2 or 3 people, driving all over the place, doing these fittings. And it worked out great. I got like really amazing feedback, and it was helpful to me because I don't have a background in retail or sales
Sure.
or anything. And it took that pressure off of like trying to make a sale. The guy was easy to sell to. It was just like, hey, do you need a Valentine's Day gift? Buy this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then when I was with her, it wasn't about selling it. It was just like, can you help me out? Try everything on. You're going to get whatever you want at the end. Pick out what you want. And I knew that it was a hit, and that that women loved it, because at least half of those women handed me, the money for a second one. She's like, I can't make up my mind. I love both of these. So here you go. Here's like the money for the other one. So
what a great idea.
Making, so I knew that they loved them. So yeah, once that happened, it was great. And, so then kind of the rest of last year, it was like, all right, now let me kind of like build the website, and let me kind of plan like a kind of make changes based on this feedback, and then do another production run for the end of last year, 2019. And again, like trying to get there in time for Christmas.
Yes.
And in the meantime, I built up the website and was just trying to get, I started to do like events. I love the in-person aspect of it. It was kind of always something I was excited about, is going, and having women try it on and feel it and try it out. And again, like, it's so incredibly soft that like, you can't like, you can't believe it. Like you feel it, and it's just like, wow. Like, so I was doing events and, markets and things like that. And I have like a mannequin.
I was watching.
And it's like free feels, and, people come by, and it's like, kind of gets them to come over, but they'll touch it and they're like, wow, like I didn't expect that, so, so I was kind of doing more of that, like all kind of last year, and I definitely wasn't really like, didn't have a very big online presence basically until COVID, so then all of that in-person stuff obviously like died down, and, I was like, all right, I really gotta like start connecting with people online. So that's still pretty new for me. It's just been the past few months, and trying different things, doing some virtual house parties, like kind of getting people together online.
And now you're doing a podcast.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So we're helping you expand your online presence with that.
Yes, I know. I really appreciate it. Yes. So yeah, and just like looking, trying to figure out like the whole PR and ads, and
it never stops.
Oh, it never ends. Yeah.
It never ends.
It's just little by little by little, but it's definitely catching on, and gaining traction, and I know, I definitely, I know it's a great product, and it's still got, there's still, things that need to be adjusted with the sizing and the styles. I'm still learning all about production and everything. But my partner in New York is, really great and very supportive, and
I love that.
Really helpful. Yeah. He genuinely cares about, my success, and so he works with me, very closely, and manages, helps me to kind of manage all of the details. And
so any new pieces to be released this year?
So what I've got right now, so yeah, I was supposed to, my summer production, which was 2 styles, was supposed to be, starting in March, and because they're in New York, that was shut down completely.
Yeah.
And one of them was really just the same style that I came out last year, this short tank top style, but that one, that was kind of the most basic, simple, everybody liked it, so that sold out pretty quickly. So I was like, okay, I'm going to need that again for this summer. So I'm still, waiting to get that stuff. And then the new thing that came out is a robe. So
I saw that.
Yeah.
I like the stripes.
Yes. I do. That one's going to be like, I know that one. I love it. It's, yeah. And even though I love my nightie, and, I want to like focus on nighties, I'm realistic that not everybody loves nighties, but people are craving these comfortable clothes with style, so, I am, kind of building upon that. So and it's also just what I know I want, I wanted this like soft bralette, I'm like, I hate wearing, like the bra and like all this stuff that's like digging in, and so I'm like, I want like pants and leggings and shorts with like a soft waistband, that things aren't digging into me. So You know, I knew I wanted that stuff, so I developed those things pretty quickly too. So I came out with the palazzo pants and the shorts and the bralette. And then last summer, when I really had no inventory but was starting to do markets, I did a little like I threw in some vintage stuff. You know, I got some like robes and nightgowns and kind of had those on the racks, you know, to kind of fill out my booth a little bit.
Yes.
And people were crazy about the robes, you know, so I just kind of like landed on that, was like, all right, like people love robes, you know,
Yeah.
so I knew that was something that would be, you know, a good seller. So I just, you know, I threw that in the mix, and like as of right now, like, you know, before this phone call and, you know, what I'm doing for the rest of the day is, you know, some more just working on new designs,
Very
and
cool.
because it takes so long to develop them. So
Yes.
yeah,
Not an overnight process, by
no.
far.
So like get him going with the samples and get me thinking about it. And it takes me a while because I don't sew myself. It's very difficult for me to kind of conceptualize how to.
You're not alone. So, but I'm gonna start wrapping things up here,
Yeah.
Maureen. I wanted to say thank you again so much for being on my podcast. And people can support you at ilovemynighty.com. They can find you on Facebook and Instagram. I will include all the links below. Is there anything else you'd like to leave? Any last messages you'd like to leave for the audience?
I mean, I just want to say whatever idea that anybody has, you know, just go for it. You know, if I can be somebody who's never done any of this stuff and I'm doing it, you know, and just get out of your own way, you know, don't come up with the reasons why you can't do it. You know, there will always be reasons why it won't work, but there are just as many reasons why it will. So don't ever, just go for it. And, you know, hopefully people won't say anything that you can't do it. I always had great support. But don't listen to anybody who says you can't do it, because you can.
I love that.
The world is your oyster. That's my saying.
Yay. I love it. On that note, this is your host, Deanna Kuempel, with Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And I will be seeing you soon with more guests.